Welcome. I'm Lee Cowan, and this is Here Comes the Sun, a closer look at some of the people, places, and things we bring you every weekend on Sunday morning. The Buena Vista Social Club started as a members-only nightclub in Havana for working-class black Cubans. The songs that entertained patrons in the 40s and the 50s were made into a Grammy Award-winning album and then featured in an Oscar-nominated documentary. Well, now those songs have come to life once again, making their way to the Broadway stage. Martha Teichner got a front row seat to learn more on the origins of this unexpected phenomenon.
Juan DeMarcos had already located and brought together the old musicians before music producers Ry Cooder and Nick Gold showed up in Havana. When their plan to make an album pairing Cuban and West African performers fell through, they went with Plan B and recorded with the group Juan DeMarcos had assembled.
I was so happy because they were my idols. I grew up listening to their music. And then suddenly I was the band leader.
Later in the show, Juan DeMarcos on bringing that ensemble together.
Do you sometimes think back and think, oh my gosh, look what I did?
Yeah, first, very special, very special. I have felt so happy. But mostly I was happy because I was the guy, or one of the guys, that gave them the possibility to get back to the stage, to get back to the music, to get back to what they did when they were younger. And they were so successful, and they were so surprised.
Then Seth Doane travels to London, where the city's iconic gas lamps are being replaced with LED versions. There used to be 55,000 gas lamps in England's capital. Now, only about 1,100 remain. The gas fixtures are better for moths and bats and biodiversity, but others believe the LEDs are cleaner, brighter, and more energy efficient.
Osman explains the lamps mostly run on timers now, but require regular maintenance. He works for British Gas, which has a history with these relics stretching to 1813, when each had to be lit individually.
Oh, once they're gone, they're gone. They've been here for over 200 years, so that's why we do our best to keep them looking and working and how they are.
The future of your job was pretty much on the line.
Yeah, a year ago, this was finished until the London Gasketeers sort of stepped in. We've got to thank them, really.
That's all coming up right here on Here Comes the Sun. In 1996, a group of seasoned Cuban musicians, some as old as 90, recorded an album showcasing the songs originally performed at the Buena Vista Social Club in the 50s. That album went on to win a Grammy and turn the mostly forgotten performers into unexpected stars. It sold more than 8 million copies worldwide. Well, now that same album has inspired a new Broadway musical, which tells the story of the original artists, their careers, and their personal struggles, decades before their fame. Here's Martha Teichner.
Remember Buena Vista Social Club, the album? Even if you don't. Now there's Buena Vista Social Club, the musical. An exuberant blast from the past. Old Cuban music for a new audience.
There is a music studio in Old Havana.
The Broadway version is a stand-in for the city's corroded grandeur, and for the studio, where in 1996, a group of old, mostly forgotten Cuban musicians recorded the album.
What follows is the story of a band. Not ours, though we will do our best. Some of what follows is true. Some of it only feels true.
The true part. The real person this actor is playing. Juan DeMarcos Gonzalez. Look, there he is during rehearsals. Juan DeMarcos had already located and brought together the old musicians before music producers Ry Cooder and Nick Gold showed up in Havana. When their plan to make an album pairing Cuban and West African performers fell through. They went with Plan B and recorded with the group Juan DeMarcos had assembled.
I was so happy because they were my idols. I grew up, listening to their music, and then suddenly I was the band leader.
Did any of the people involved, including you, have any idea that what became Buena Vista Social Club would be something big?
No. They became pop stars. It was like an unbelievable thing.
The unexpected and irresistible phenomenon that resulted is the subject of the Oscar-nominated 1999 Wim Wenders documentary.
Well, it was just ubiquitous. I mean, you would hear this music everywhere.
Music journalist Judy Cantor Navas is a Substack contributor and the author of Cuba on Record.
To say that, yes, we're listening to this old Cuban music that is suddenly selling millions of albums seemed like something that was very unlikely.
Why do you think people love the music so much?
I think not only this, but Cuban music has really appealed to so many different kinds of people. They say that it has, the perfect combination of the Afro-Cuban rhythms and the Spanish melodies that came together in Cuba. It's just this very infectious music that gets in your soul.
It wasn't just the music they loved, it was who the musicians were, the improbable last act of their careers. The album won a Grammy and has sold more than 8 million copies worldwide.
And they were so happy, because they came back to the stage. Because if you're a musician and you are an artist, you are always an artist, And even when you are retired, you have this small candle in your heart.
Omara Portuondo was 67. Ibrahim Ferrer was 70. Other band members were as old as 90. They began touring the world. No quiero. Even singing to me for a Sunday Morning story 25 years ago. I still have to pinch myself to make sure I'm not asleep and dreaming, Ferrer says. I never thought I'd have so much success. The play tells the imagined origin story of the musicians, of their careers, their personal struggles.
But I know how this story goes.
With hints of romance, decades before their fame late in life.
What's this place called?
The Buena Vista Social Club.
I'm Cuban American. I was born and raised in Miami, but my parents and my family's Cuban. And so for me, what brought me to this was the music. It was music that I was raised around my entire life.
Marco Ramirez wrote the Broadway show. He was 14 when the album came out.
This is a moment of intense pride, of us realizing that the world cared about our music and that these songs that I was used to hearing on my grandfather's little yellow Sony boombox above the washing machine, these were songs that suddenly the whole world cared about. That meant everything to me.
I guess I just dreamed that one day with the right record, we might remind the world that Mozart has got nothing on us.
And I was just obsessed with this album. I kept listening to it on repeat. Something about the lyrics spoke to me. I learned the lyrics without knowing what I was talking about, because Swahili is my first language.
This was in Kenya, where Sahim Ali, the director of the show, grew up. His father, an airline pilot, brought the album home.
I knew nothing about their stories, absolutely nothing. The first time I knew about the stories was reading Marco's script. That's what excited me about this musical. People are going to know about them now in a way that young people like me never had a chance to.
Brought to life on a Broadway stage, The old songs as they were played in the 1940s and 50s at the actual Buena Vista Social Club, a members-only Havana nightclub for working-class black Cubans. It was shut down after Fidel Castro came to power in 1959. The events of the Cuban Revolution lurk at the edges of the show.
It's not your fault the world made us take sides until one day there were only two types of Cubans: those who stayed and those who left.
Playing yesterday's Cuban music on Broadway, some of today's finest Cuban musicians, most of whom now live outside Cuba, because making a living there is tough.
The people are going to see the real Cuba. They are going to get a piece of our country when they attend the musical. We have nothing in our country. We don't have oil, we don't have gold, but we have the music, beautiful ladies, good coffee, the best cigars, and the best rum. That's what, and the music, which is the most important thing, like food for us.
Served up on Broadway, a feast.
Up next, an exclusive excerpt from Martha Teichner's chat with band leader Juan DeMarcos, something you can only see right here on Here Comes the Sun. Stay with us. As promised, here's more from Martha Teichner's interview with Juan DeMarcos.
What was Ry Cooder's role?
He was the producer of the album, but Cuban music is a little bit difficult, you know, because we have something that's a pattern. There's a, for example, for you in the jazz, there's something that's called the Big Four. This is the Big Four. And for Cuban music, it's something that's called la clave. If you are not Cuban or related to the Cuban culture, it's difficult to understand la clave. So Ray was the producer of the album. He was the guy in the cabin, and I was the guy conducting the band and arranging the music.
And the guy who found the musicians.
And founding the musicians, yeah.
Without his name attached to the project, would it have had the same impact or distribution?
I believe that yes. I believe that yes. Because the magic of one of the magic of the points that made the album successful, of course, was the presence of an American working with Cubans. Because it's taboo, you know. America's America, Cuba's Cuba, Castro, and JFK, and all of this.
Politics.
Yeah. But the most important thing was the presence of the old guys who were supposed to be retired, who were supposed to be at home doing nothing, that came back to stage.
Were those musicians truly forgotten before you went looking for them to bring them back to do this recording?
They were old. You know, when you get old, you get forgotten sometimes. And then the most of them were retired. For example, Puntillita was retired. Juan Gonzalez was retired. Ibrahim Ferrer was retired. The most of them were not working anymore. And their music wasn't in fashion because it was traditional music and they were not young people. When you are a young performer, play in traditional music like, for example, Renecito that we have in the musical, he's a young guy performing traditional Cuban music, but he dressed like a young guy, you know what I mean? But they were old people performing old music. The music wasn't in fashion, the music that they used to play, so they were not working.
Do you sometimes think back and think, oh my gosh, look what I did?
Yeah, I mean, first, very special, very special. I have felt so happy. But mostly I was happy because I was the guy, or one of the guys, that gave them the possibility to get back to the stage, to get back to to the music, to get back to what they did when they were younger. And they were so successful, and they were so surprised.
When you listen to the CD of Buena Vista Social Club, the original one, or even watch the Wim Wenders documentary, it's different from when you see actual musicians playing live in a theater. What do you think that difference is? What are people getting if they come to this show and hear these musicians play live?
It's basically the same thing. Why? Because the Buena Vista Social Club was played live, absolutely live. Everybody together, but in the studio. When they are attending the concert in a theater, it's going to sound a little bit more powerful, the music, but it's basically the same thing. Because the way we used to record the album was the same way that it was recorded, the music during the first half of the 20th century. Everybody together, all together, like rock and roll of the 70s, everybody in the same studio performing live at the same time. And this is the way that we're doing in the musical. It's going to be great. It's basically the same thing. And I believe that the magic of the album, of the original Buena Vista Social Club album, was this live spirit.
Up next, shining a light on London's historic gas lamps. Welcome back. Gas lamps. They've been used to illuminate streets for over 200 years. But the notable fixtures that evoke that Charles Dickens era are now being replaced all around London with modern LED models. Seth Doane, though, met a group of gaslight enthusiasts, nicknamed the Gasketeers, who were on a mission to save those famed lamps.
These London landmarks can predate Big Ben by half a century, casting their warm glow from the city's most recognizable sights to its quaint alleyways. But the humble gas lamp has been underappreciated of late.
There used to be 55,000 gas lights in London.
Today, how many?
About 1,100 left.
Aaron Osman is among London's last lamplighter's.
While fashions came and went, and the pace of life grew quicker and brighter, they still shed their soft and sympathetic light.
What's a Leary? Why, it's what we lamplighters call ourselves.
Learys or lamplighters have endured in film lore.
Learys, trip the lights and lead the way.
Including Mary Poppins Returns. And the historic lamps set the scene in Harry Potter. But it's a livelihood nearly extinguished in the harsh glare of so-called progress.
The old gas mantle can't compete with the new sodium lamp, whose illumination can be up to 20 times as great.
Cleaner, more energy-efficient, and brighter energy light sources have come into vogue, the unromantic LED being the latest.
So then I would light the pilot.
Osman explains the lamps mostly run on timers now, but require regular maintenance. He works for British Gas, which has a history with these relics stretching to 1813, when each had to be lit individually.
Oh, once they're gone, they're gone. They've been here for over 200 years. So that's why we do our best to keep them looking and working and how they are.
The future of your job was pretty much on the line.
Yeah, a year ago, this was finished. Until the London Gasketeers sort of stepped in. We've got to thank them, really.
Those Gasketeers, think musketeers with a gas lamp saving mission, are headquartered, quite fittingly, in an antique bookshop.
The gaslight really suits the character of the street.
Meet Tim Bryars of Bryars and Bryars Books, who was astonished when he found workers about to dig up the gas lamp outside.
And they told me not to worry, they were just going to see how easy it was to convert our wonderful working gas lamp to an LED. And at that point I was like, are you really?
He put a stop to that, and it sparked the idea for a campaign to try to save other lamps.
How architecture is lit, how buildings are lit, is really important. And the gas lamps give this incredibly distinctive, warm glow, which can't be replicated with a modern LED light.
Were the gas lamps something you'd noticed before?
Yeah, I just assumed that they were safe though. I didn't believe that anyone would come along after 100 years and just take them away. It seemed crazy.
There are environmental reasons to replace these gas lamps.
The combined emissions of the gas lamps in Westminster account for 0.0088% of the borough's carbon emissions. In fact, you could argue that often the simplest and cheapest and greenest option is to keep what's already there.
That and the fact they're better for moths and bats and biodiversity, all reasons to get the remaining ones listed on a historic registry to protect them.
They've done excellent research. They've shown it's a negligible environmental impact.
Lord Stephen Parkinson was culture minister when this campaign started. They've saved dozens of lamps.
I think that's really convinced lots of people that it's great. We should hold on to this little slice of the past.
They also illuminate a particularly, well, pungent part of that past.
So this is known as the sewer lamp. So it's the last one remaining that works the way it works. So we're here next to the Savoy Hotel on Carting Lane. This is known as Farting Lane.
Farting Lane?
Yep, because this is where all the sewage from London used to run into the Thames.
Methane from that sewage, unwittingly provided by hotel guests, helps power the lamp. And once upon a time, it had the added benefit of burning off some of the Victorian-era stench, shining even brighter when London is busy.
I never thought I was going to know this much about gas lamps. You know, I look at a gas lamp now and I go, right, I can see that's a 1908 model Rochester with a Horstman clockwork timer and a... Anyway, I've got to be careful. I'm not allowed to talk about gas lamps at home after 8 o'clock at night.
Your wife says, please, enough?
Sometimes.
These lights from Charles Dickens' era just have so much more personality than an LED.
It's a beautiful light.
It's a beautiful light. You know, we call it the Dickensian glow.
And for the gas companies, Aaron Osman, they make for a pretty good perch.
It's the places that we get to work. You know, the royal parks, palaces, and then all them quirky little streets. You don't get to do that when you're just fixing boilers.
I'm Lee Cowan. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you right here next time on Here Comes the Sun.